The wins and losses on the field every Saturday affect more than just the record next to a team's name. We're talking recruiting and the fallout from big-time games, like Texas A&M storming into South Bend and knocking off Notre Dame in an instant classic. The big-time games bring in those big-time recruits to watch in person on those visits, and that's exactly what the scene was like Saturday in Knoxville as well, a true SEC showdown between Georgia and Tennessee that also lived up to the billing. Regulation wasn't enough. Vols had their chances to win it, but the Dogs prevailed in OT. Playoff hopes are still alive for both teams, but as we take a look at the team recruiting rankings, things are certainly alive for USC right now, who are the #1 team in the country, according to 24/7 Sports, with their 2026 team recruiting rankings. Georgia's right after that, and the teams we just featured, including Notre Dame, Texas A&M, and Tennessee, all find themselves in the top 10 of the country when it comes to those recruiting rankings. For even more recruiting, we had to bring in the big dogs. Now, pleased to welcome in Brandon Huffman and Tom Loy, our national recruiting experts with 24/7 Sports. Big games, big losses for Notre Dame and Tennessee last weekend, gentlemen. And Tom, I'll start with you first. How was that affecting the two programs with how things are shaking out on the trail for them?
Yeah, things are fine. I'm not going to lie. I mean, these kids don't get too worked up, especially if you come to Notre Dame and you're checking out the Fighting Irish and they lose a close game to Texas A&M. Fighting Irish fans shouldn't be too worked up. It's really that simple. These guys had no impact on the field. They're there for the game day atmosphere. They're there to see what the culture's like. And a kid I want to single out is DJ Jacobs, one of the top edge rushers in the class of 2027. There's a lot of buzz that he could reclassify into 2026. So he's on campus in South Bend. This is a high academic kid, loves football, an elite talent on the field, a future day one pick in my opinion, and that of our director of scouting, Andrew Ivan. So he comes up to Notre Dame, no impact on the game, loves everything about it. He's extremely high on Notre Dame. This game had zero impact on his negative look at Notre Dame.
So then when you look at Tennessee, and I'm also just curious from like a bigger picture aspect, if an individual game is not swaying one way or another, what does matter? Because you look at Tennessee, is it just the overall trajectory and how they stand now after losing to Georgia?
Yeah, that's really what it is. It's all about the focus on the future. Again, these guys had zero impact on the field. There was nothing they needed to worry about because they're sitting there just trying to enjoy it, soak it all in, see what it's like. And maybe even look, hey, I could have impacted Tennessee in a different way. Andrew Rogers, 3-star edge rusher, one of the top players, currently committed to Virginia Tech, which we might talk about shortly. He was there in Knoxville. Maybe he sees himself as a potential fit where he could have made that one extra play that put them up, over the hump against Georgia. So a lot of factors in play, but I think these kids are taking these visits just to soak it up, get around the players, get around the coaches, see what the culture's like. Again, one loss, a close loss at that, not going to negatively impact these guys at all.
You bring up Virginia Tech, and that's exactly where I want to go to next. And Brandon, I'll start with you first here because we look at the fallout from UCLA and Virginia Tech both firing their head coaches. I know you have an article up on 247sports.com right now kind of chronicling the way of things, how they're shaking right now. But I want to start with Virginia Tech first specifically, Brandon. How are things looking for them as they want to hire a head coach if they're thinking about recruiting?
Well, they already lost their top commit in this class in Thomas Wilder. He had said earlier in the day on Sunday that he wasn't planning to decommit and then ultimately did decommit. Now, what hurts about him is obviously not just losing him, but that he has two teammates that are also committed to the Hokies as well in this class, in Xavion Cleveland and Cameron Johnson, who are both defensive players. And so when you lose kind of your ringleader, you ended up wondering, is that going to have a trickle-down effect with three guys from the same school all committed there? With Wilder decommitting, does that open the door for Cleveland and Johnson to do so as well? Schools immediately with UCLA and with Virginia Tech started hitting at those commits, trying to see just how solid they were in their commitment if that coaching change impacted it. But losing to Thomas Wilder, a 4-star offensive tackle, that hurts because he was their highest rated player. But now the trickle-down effect that it could have with his two teammates in Cleveland and Johnson could have an even bigger impact, and it's a lot of those ACC schools. We're going to see North Carolina make a big push with a lot of these decommits as well, and then Virginia, the in-state school, could also try to poach those. Now they have have their own potential coaching change at the end of the year if things don't get right there in Charlottesville. But Virginia Tech already losing their top target and now potentially losing 2 more, and that could just be getting be really the tip of the iceberg there.
So, Brandon, then let's look over to UCLA. Of course, they say bye-bye to Deshaun Foster. It's been a tumultuous past few years for them. Where do things stand with them on that recruiting trail?
Well, they had really got impacted on Sunday. They had 6 players decommit in the 2026 class, and then they lost their longest commit in the 2027 class as well in Demaji Riley. The ones that hurt, though, Johnny Jones, who they got kind of out of the blue in the middle of summer after an official visit. Florida State had been kind of percolating there with him. They had him at their game against Alabama, so even when he committed to UCLA, you had to worry about Florida State. Well, as soon as Deshaun Foster gets let go, Johnny Jones opens up his recruitment. Florida State's right there. North Carolina, as I mentioned earlier, they're also around. Then David Schwerzel, a 4-star defensive lineman from Seattle, who they took out of the University of Washington's backyard, committed there in June. He also decommitted, and largely because he's uncertain what's going to happen with defensive coordinator Ikaika Malloy, who was key in his recruitment. Keep an eye on Michigan State there. They already have a commitment from his teammate Fa'as Siale, and then obviously hometown Washington, which is right there in his backyard. His high school is 5 miles from Husky Stadium. They could be involved. Stanford was also involved there too, although they have their own coaching search that they're going into. So their highest rated player on the offensive side of the ball, and Johnny Jones decommitted. David Schwerzel, their second highest rated. But then the big one is Carter Gooden out of Massachusetts. He and his teammate Marcus Almada, they're both staying committed to UCLA, but they're also both weighing their options. So UCLA could see their 4 stars. They could be down to 1 before too long. And then even the other one, Micah Smith, is still uncertain if he's going to stick. So UCLA really feeling the effects of firing Deshaun Foster on the recruiting trail.
Yeah, coaching shakeups always make things very, very interesting for a class and how it can be put together. I have about a minute here left. I want to ask a broader question. I'll start with you, Tom, and then you can follow Brandon. As you look towards the end of this class of 2026 becoming more official, what is the biggest question you have still out there when it comes to this cycle?
I really just want to see if all of these guys are going to stick. I have talked to a ton of prospects in the class of 2026 with the top 247, and nearly every single one of them are committed. Obviously, you're going to have some coaching changes, shaking things up, but I just want to see if these kids, their contracts, them saying they're locked in. I think that we're going to see fewer and fewer decommits as we move forward. It's going to be something to watch down the stretch, but I think a lot of these guys are going to stick with their decisions.
Yeah, and to follow what Tom said, I think that the contracts really have a big bearing on whether guys decommit or not. And even with some of the players decommitting from UCLA and Virginia Tech after coaching changes, you didn't see mass decommitments. You saw a few because so many of those numbers have already been agreed upon. And now you're trying to come into a market where most of that money is tied up in the rest of the 2026 commits. So there may not be as much wiggle room with those contracts that schools have in terms of financially. So I think we are going to see less decommitments, especially with some of the coaching changes that still might be out there. I think you'll still see a little bit of decommitment, but not nearly as much as we have seen in previous years.
Brandon Huffman and Tom Lloyd talking some college football recruiting. Certainly appreciated. We'll see you every week moving forward here on Tuesdays as we progress through the rest of the season. And the season continues this weekend with the college football pregame show. They're hitting the road once again. Michigan at Nebraska. Out there with the corn. Lincoln, the spot. I like corn. Saturday, 9 a.m. Go catch that college football pregame show.